How's it going? It's a glorious Tuesday, and it's so nice outside. I'm not even paying attention to my car thermometer. That's how nice it is. It's awesome. That's all I'm going to say. It's actually not 100 degrees here in Austin, Texas, which is great. But Trump, I forget when he said it. I think he said it when he went to Charlottesville, when he made that famous speech that there's fine people on both sides. That the media snipped out the first part where he condemned the white supremacists. He says that what's next? They're going to go after George Washington because he owned slaves. Well, guess what? Guess what? He was right. According to Graham.news, where I got this story from, New York City to consider removing statues of George Washington, create reparation task force amid budget cuts. There's nothing on the left. There's nothing in the center. Only the right. Cultural Affairs Committee in New York City has considered a proposal to remove artworks on the city property that depicts historical figures with controversial pasts, such as slave owners and those that are involved in crimes against indigenous people. If the commission decides not to remove a statue or a monument connected to a person who committed a crime against humanity, the city would be required to install explanatory plaques about the historical figure's misdeeds. The proposed measure also includes installing plaques in your schools named after individuals fitting the criteria in the constellation of the Department of Education. Now, of course, I have the New York Post, which pretty much sometimes they got good stories, sometimes they got bad stories, but they report pretty much everything. New York City Council advances a bid that could yank monuments honoring Washington, Jefferson, and Columbus by Carl Campany, published September 18th, 2023 at 8:08 p.m. Eastern. New York City Council, which just passed a budget, has already deemed a flop, is now spending some of its time advancing a plan that could kill off monuments honoring figures such as George Washington. Democrat-led Council Cultural Affairs Committee is set to hold public hearing, Tuesday on the proposal to yank artworks from the city property dedicated to historical figures such as George Washington, Peter Stuyvesant, and Christopher Columbus because of their controversial past. But critics immediately branded the effort as cancel culture run amok. Columbus was a migrant. Fume Angelo Vigliotto, president of the Columbus Heritage Coalition, Vivo vowed to fight any attempt to remove monuments of the famous Italian explorer from the city parkland, including the most recognizable statue of Columbus Circle. Among the council, usual major responsibility is passing a budget. Lawmakers approved spending a plan at the end of June, but it's already a disaster, with Mayor Eric Adams ordering the city agency cuts because of potential out of balance in the tune of billions of dollars thanks to a migrant crisis, critics note. You're welcome, Mayor Eric Adams. You should be also thanking Joe Biden with his immigration policy. If it wasn't for Joe Biden ignoring the pleas of the border states, you wouldn't have that migrant crisis. The 51-member council also oversees operations of the city's agency and passing out local regulations and laws that spans everything from outdoor dining to zoning matters. But now the main focus is counseling historical figures. That's not an idle threat, the statue of Thomas Jefferson, the drafter of the Declaration of Independence and America's third president, was removed from City Hall because he was a slave owner. The Cultural Affairs Committee, upon hearing, involves legislation that would require the City Public Design Commission to publish a plan to remove works of art on the Big Apple property that depicts a person who owned slaves, a person who directly benefited economically from slavery, or who participated in systematic crimes against indigenous people or other crimes against humanity. Well, you know what? I'm just going to say this as an opinion. Was our founding fathers perfect? Absolutely not. Did they draft something that changed the course of history for the betterment? Absolutely. Now, I understand owning slaves is not in vogue right now. I understand that people think slave owners negatively, but you have to consider the time. We have the luxury of looking through history with today's standards. You can only judge a person for the period that they were at. What was the social norms at that time period? Not saying it's right or wrong, it's just that was the social norms of the time. Is there any accusations, evidence that they mistreated their slaves other than the fact that they were slaves? That's something that we would have to look into. If the commission determines a statue or a monument honors a person who committed crimes against humanity but votes not to remove the artwork, it will be required that the city install an expiatory plaque about the misdeeds of the historical figures, according to the bill authored by the Brooklyn Council, Sandy Nurse, and co-sponsored by 6 other lawmakers. The bill will also require the Department of Transportation to consult with the Department of Education to install plaques on sidewalks or other public space adjacent to the schools that are named after a person that fits this criteria. Nurse said in a memo explaining the bill. Let's see, there are more than half a dozen monuments on the city property honoring slave owners. Washington, also America's first president and the revolutionary hero, including Washington Square Park and the Union Square Park. Peter Stuyvesant, a Dutch governor, early New York settler, and a slave owner, has a statue in Stuyvesant Park. A prestigious Stuyvesant High School is named after him. Other famous slave holders who have schools in the name after them include John J. Cooney J. or Johnson J. College and Dwight Clinton High School. Columbus, while lauded for discovery of the New World, has been targeted for elimination of the public square for brutalizing native population during his travels. Monuments of him have been taken down elsewhere. There's little more than an attempt by the radical left to rewrite our nation's history, says Joan Ariella, Republican Queens. These men had enormous impact on this country, and these statues are commemorating their achievements and have been in place for decades. The radical left has been trying to reframe our nation as one born from evil, and it's time that we put our foot down and say, enough is enough. The founding fathers and others who worked so hard to establish this great country should be celebrated, not eliminated from memory. Council Republican Minority Leader Joe Burrow, who represents Staten Island with the largest Italian American and pro-Columbus population, said his left-wing Democrat colleagues are turning the council into a punchline. Well, it is New York after all. The joke kind of writes his own self. How original. The council is good for a statue banning committee every year or so, second only to our annual Cars Are Bad hearing, Borrella says. By now, they're getting the same attention as World Series of obscure Canadian winter sports on ESPN. Ocho, even in the My Pillow guy, who wouldn't buy ads during the broadcast, he quipped. Former Mayor de Blasio also created a panel while in office and looked at the monuments honoring famous figures to see if they should be removed for a history of humane actions. But the 18-member panel of experts commission-led protests ended and focused on just 4 public monuments with controversial 1800 genealogist Dr. Warren Sims for being the lone figure to get the boot. I thought this was behind us. Vivo said, the woke groups wants to cancel our culture. I'm here for the fight. The Italian American community will come out strongly against this move to ban Columbus, a symbol of the Italian American accomplishment. But it's not just Columbus. You're going against Washington, Jefferson. You're going against the people who contribute greatly to America, he said. In response to the bill, it was not immediately available for comment. I mean, I understand that you want to put a plaque saying, George Washington, Jefferson, Christopher Columbus may not have this rosy, clean history. But we're not putting a statue to celebrate their position on slavery or the Native Americans. We're celebrating the fact that they positively changed the course of the United States. We have the general, I think it was a general after the fact, but we have Washington that led our Revolutionary War to victory and was our first president of the United States that dictated the two-term standard. He also set the standard of what the role of the president should be. So he has a very positive impact. Now, that's not saying that he should get a pass for being a slave owner. No, we should definitely learn about him being a slave owner, but that shouldn't erase the role that he played to create one of the greatest countries on the planet. Let's see here. So the city council people who are elected to work for us, they make a good salary and do nothing but push their woke agenda. They do not put any effort to change the horror in the New York City is becoming. But this, they push getting rid of American history because someone's feelings might be hurt. History is very important. It's bad enough that they don't want to teach in schools, but remove statues is just wrong. The statues of these famous people were made and installed for a reason, to show our history, remember our history. But they do not think so because they were indoctrinated by the woke culture where American history is no good. Hey, I'm willing to admit that not everything America has done in its past is on the up. We have our own black guys just like every other country on this planet. Name me one country that doesn't have a couple of black guys when it comes against crimes against humanity. Name me one country that really never benefited from slavery. Name me one group of people that didn't conquer another person, another group. That includes Native Americans. They were conquering each other. They were fighting each other. They were slaughtering each other. It just, we came around and put an end to it with our own slaughtering and enslaving. Let's see here. For the destruction of the nation's culture is essential to push a socialist revolution forward, change our history, destroy our culture artifacts, take over the education to indoctrinate the children, cause discomfort, division, and distrust amongst the people. Sad times. It's almost like there was a book and a movie called 1984 that talked about this. Just saying, and I think forgot his name. John Wick actor played in a similar type of movie where they removed emotions. Can't believe I forgot his name. Oh, Keanu Reeves. I forget what that movie was. It was a really good movie. It was kind of along the lines of 1984. Speaking about that, here's a quote that I believe is from that book. Every record's been destroyed or falsified, every book rewritten, every picture has been repainted, every statue in the street building has been renamed, every date has been altered. The process of continuing day by day, minute by minute, history has stopped. Nothing exists except the endless present in which the party is always right. I think that's a quote from 1984. I agree with you. You're describing what happened to the Native Americans before Columbus came here. There were 1 million plus Native Americans in entire civilizations in North America. After Europeans came, the Native Americans were wiped out. Nearly 1% of their population and their lands were stolen from them. Columbus did not discover America. Discovered implies that the first to arrive on the land, there was already civilizations here when he came here, so he didn't discover America. But he kind of did discover America. He linked the Americas with the old world. Because of his travel here is what caused us to have America. Let's see, a barbaric society, even by then European standards, a society that simply got replaced by a technology superior one, perhaps that they were more interested in science and exploration instead of child sacrifice. It would have been the other way around. It's a very valid point. Let's hear. They're living on the ground and fighting with each other. Are you saying that if the Europeans never arrived, the Native Americans would have invented cars, modern day business, the internet, and iPhones? Oh, those were invented by those awful white people who contribute nothing to society. Telling it like it is RB. Let's see here. You're so righteous, why don't you set a precedent for the rest of us and give back your property to the first Native American you see? Then you can come back and pontification or whatever it's called to the rest of us. The Indians were torturing, enslaving, and killing each other long before Columbus got here. A million aliens, that's some pow wow. The whole Indian reference thing is started by the way we gave land back and support them from what I hear. A lot are fat and drink too much. I mean, not entirely wrong, but not entirely correct. We all have fat people. I'm a fat white man because I like the sweets too much. That being said, that is my video for today. Leave a comment down below what your thoughts are about this topic. I don't think we should be tearing down statues of our founding fathers because they represent a beginning of a nation. It was a beginning of something great. They didn't have it perfect when they started, but that's what's so great about the system that they created is that we were able to make the system more fair. We were able to eliminate legal slavery within our state. We're able to give civil rights to all, give civil rights to women, give them the ability to vote, so everyone could have an equal fitting or equal standing in the society that they could achieve their dreams. And it's still not perfect. Every year we get a little bit better. Every new law that gets passed, asterisk, makes us better, that gives us more civil rights. I should say, any law that gives the common folk more rights is a step in the right direction. That being said, that is my video, but most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.